I never thought a single conversation could turn my whole world upside down. One quiet evening, I sat across from my wife, the person I thought I knew better than anyone. The air was thick, heavy with words neither of us wanted to say, but she said it anyway. "I think we should get a divorce." For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. Divorce. The word hung between us like a storm cloud ready to break. I blinked, hoping maybe I'd misheard her, that the tension in her voice was just a trick of my imagination. But no, the tremor in her hands, the way she avoided my eyes, it was real. The life I thought we were building together, the late-night talks, the shared dreams, the laughter, and even the arguments, it was suddenly teetering on the edge of disappearing forever. I remember the silence that followed, that heavy, suffocating silence that made every second stretch like hours. And then came the words I didn't expect, the ones that would change everything. My sister, the one person I always turned to when life got messy, leaned in and whispered something I still can't forget. "This isn't the end for you, it's the beginning." I stared at her, trying to understand. Beginning? How could my sister, of all people, say that? I felt like I was losing my mind. My wife was walking away, our life together unraveling. And yet my sister was suggesting there was some kind of chance, some kind of doorway I hadn't even noticed. The thing is, my sister has always had a way of seeing things I can't. She notices the cracks in people's hearts before anyone else does. She hears the unspoken words, feels the tension before it breaks. And when she speaks, it's never just casual advice. It's a challenge, a nudge, a warning wrapped in curiosity. That night, as she sat across from me, her eyes glinting with a mix of mischief and certainty, I realized that whatever she meant by beginning, it was going to push me far out of my comfort zone. I wanted to argue, to push back, to cling to the life I thought I was losing. But something about her words planted a seed of hope and fear. Because hope and fear are dangerous companions. They make you act when you don't know if you should, and they whisper promises you're not sure you want to keep. I didn't know it yet, but that moment, the divorce announcement, the sister's cryptic words, was the hinge of everything that would come after. It was the point where my life could split into two paths, and the choices I would make next, well, they would change everything. And just as I was trying to gather my thoughts, my sister leaned closer and said something so unexpected, so shocking, that I nearly dropped my coffee. It was a question that would force me to decide between what I had always known and what I had never dared to imagine. Before that night, I thought I knew exactly where my life was headed. My wife and I had been together for almost 10 years, long enough to build a comfortable rhythm, long enough to think we were unshakable. We had shared a small apartment that smelled faintly of coffee and old books, late-night pizza orders, and the kind of laughter that only comes when you're completely comfortable with someone. But underneath it all, there were cracks I didn't want to see. My wife, Emma, was brilliant, warm, and funny, but she carried a quiet restlessness, a sense that something in her life was missing. She smiled easily, but sometimes her eyes seemed distant, like she was watching a different world through a window I couldn't reach. I convinced myself it was just stress from work, or maybe the pressure of adult life. I didn't want to admit that maybe we were drifting apart. Then there was my sister, Claire. She was the opposite of Emma in almost every way, bold, outspoken, chaotic in the best possible sense. Claire had always been the one to stir the pot, to call out the truth when I didn't want to hear it. Growing up, she saved me from more mistakes than I could count, even if her methods were unorthodox. She had a way of slipping into a room and making you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. And that night, when she said, "It's our beginning," I could see that familiar spark in her eyes, the spark that meant she had a plan, or at least an idea that would shake my world. It wasn't that Emma and I fought constantly. We didn't. Our love had been steady, predictable, and perhaps too safe. But in those quiet moments, when the apartment was dark except for the faint hum of the fridge, I began noticing the distance growing between us. The small gestures she once made, holding my hand during a movie, leaving little notes on my desk, became rare. And the conversations we had, once filled with jokes and dreams, turned into polite exchanges about bills and groceries. Claire had always warned me about getting too comfortable, about settling into the version of life that looks safe but feels empty. And now, in the shadow of Emma's words, I realized she might have been right. But I couldn't stop the flood of questions. What did she mean by beginning? Was it some kind of crazy idea? Or was there really a way forward that I hadn't even considered? The tension in the apartment that night was thick. Emma sat across from me, calm but distant, like she had already made her peace with the end. Claire leaned in, her voice low and conspiratorial, as if she was about to reveal something forbidden. I felt caught in the middle of two worlds, the life I thought I had and something I couldn't yet understand. And then, just when I thought I might finally get some clarity, Claire said something so precise, so deliberate, that it made my heart stop. A single sentence that hinted at a secret connection, at a path I had never dared to imagine, at choices I wasn't ready to make. The days that followed were surreal. Every interaction with Emma felt like walking on a tightrope. Her tone was polite, almost gentle, but beneath it was a cold edge I had never felt before. It was the kind of quiet distance that screams louder than any argument. I tried to talk, to ask why, to find some trace of the woman I thought I knew, but every attempt ended in frustration, silence, or averted eyes. Meanwhile, Claire didn't make it any easier. She hovered at the edges of my life like a storm I couldn't escape. Every time I thought I had a handle on what was happening, she dropped another cryptic comment or mischievous smirk, suggesting that maybe this ending was really a test, or a door, or a chance I'd never get again. It was maddening. I loved my wife, but I couldn't stop wondering if Claire's words had a kernel of truth, some invisible path opening right in front of me. I found myself questioning everything. Was Emma really done with us? Had I missed signs of unhappiness, subtle hints that I had chosen to ignore? And why did Claire's words, her insistence that this could be the start of something new, feel so urgent, so impossible to dismiss? My heart ached with uncertainty. Every choice felt like stepping into a fog. Every glance at Emma felt like a test I was failing. And then came the moments that truly rattled me, the little things that didn't make sense. Emma leaving for long walks without telling me where she was going. Her phone vibrating constantly, and a flicker of panic crossing her face when I approached. Claire's sudden insistence that I meet someone, that I open myself to a world I hadn't imagined, a world that felt both thrilling and terrifying. I was caught in the middle, spinning between two forces I didn't fully understand. One pulled me toward a painful end with Emma. The other pulled me toward a new, uncertain beginning with a sister who seemed to know more than she would admit. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality, like my life had split in two, and I had to pick a side without knowing the full story. And just as I began to think I couldn't handle the tension any longer, Claire leaned in closer one evening, her voice low and urgent, and whispered something so shocking that it made my blood run cold. It was a secret, a revelation, a challenge that would force me to confront a choice I wasn't ready to face. And yet, somehow, I knew I couldn't ignore it. The tension in my life had become unbearable. Every day felt like navigating a maze with no exit. Emma moved around the apartment as if it weren't ours anymore, leaving small traces of herself behind. An unfinished cup of coffee, a jacket draped over a chair, but never speaking more than necessary. I couldn't tell if she was preparing to leave for good or testing me, watching to see how I'd react. My heart ached with every glance, every half-smile, every sigh that carried more weight than words could hold. Claire, on the other hand, was a whirlwind. She had taken to showing up at odd hours, leaning in with that familiar glint in her eye that always made me nervous. "You have to see it for yourself," she'd insist, refusing to explain further. I didn't know what it was, but the urgency in her voice made it impossible to ignore. And when she touched my arm, lightly but deliberately, I could feel the pull toward a truth I wasn't ready to face. I found myself torn. On one side was Emma, the life I had thought was mine forever, the woman I had loved through every high and low. On the other side was Claire's mysterious promise, a path that felt forbidden but somehow necessary. My nights became restless, filled with racing thoughts, dreams where Emma and Claire's voices blended into one, where the lines between loyalty, love, and desire blurred until I could no longer tell which path was real. Then came the first cracks that made my confusion tangible. I noticed Emma's hesitation whenever I tried to speak about the divorce. Her eyes would dart away, a flicker of something I couldn't identify. Was it guilt? Fear? Or had she been hiding a truth I couldn't yet see? Claire seemed to know, of course, and she delighted in that. She would lean back, arms crossed, watching me squirm with questions I couldn't ask, whispering, "Soon, you'll understand why endings aren't always what they seem." Every meeting with her felt like stepping closer to a cliff. She hinted at secrets, glimpses of a reality that both terrified and excited me. I could sense that something monumental was about to happen, a revelation that would shatter the fragile balance I'd been clinging to. I could feel the weight of decisions pressing down, threatening to crush me with their inevitability. And then came the night when everything almost fell apart. Emma returned home late, her face pale, eyes wide with an emotion I couldn't place. I opened my mouth to speak, to ask what had happened, but before I could, Claire appeared behind me, her presence startling me into silence. She didn't say a word. She just looked at me with that knowing expression, the one that always meant she was holding something back, something dangerous, something I had to discover for myself. My pulse raced. My hands trembled. I realized, in that heartbeat, that the life I knew was about to collide with the life I didn't, and that collision would leave nothing the same. Something massive was coming, something I couldn't avoid, and in that moment, I understood that the choice wasn't just mine to make. Just when I thought I had begun to understand, Claire dropped the bomb. She leaned in, voice low, eyes sharp, and said something that froze me completely. "Emma isn't leaving because she wants to. She's leaving because she has to, and it's not what you think." My mind raced. What could she possibly mean? I thought I had already faced betrayal, heartbreak, the slow unraveling of the life I loved. But this was something else entirely. Claire's words hinted at a secret so deep, so dangerous, that it made my stomach twist. And then she added, almost as an afterthought, "If you don't act soon, you'll lose her forever, and it will be your fault." The fear hit me like a physical blow. My entire world teetered on the edge. Emma's disappearance, the divorce, Claire's cryptic insistence, it all suddenly felt connected in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. I realized I was running out of time, trapped between two truths, two women, and a decision that could destroy everything or change everything. And in that moment, I understood that nothing would ever be simple again. Not love, not loyalty, not family. And the choice I had been dreading? It was coming faster than I could imagine. The night everything came to a head felt like walking through a storm with no shelter. Emma had left a note on the kitchen counter, her handwriting trembling. "Meet me where it all began. Midnight. Please." My hands shook as I read it, a mix of hope, fear, and something I couldn't name. Claire's cryptic warnings echoed in my mind. I knew I couldn't face this alone. I arrived at the old park where Emma and I had shared our first date. The air was thick, mist curling around the streetlights like fingers. I spotted her in the distance, her silhouette small and fragile under the pale glow. But as I approached, I realized she wasn't alone. Claire stood beside her, a quiet intensity in her eyes that made my heart pound. "Emma," I began, my voice breaking. She looked at me, tears welling in her eyes, and I thought I saw the love I had almost lost. But then Claire stepped forward, her tone firm. "You need to hear the truth. Emma isn't leaving you because she wants to. She's being forced. Someone's been manipulating everything. Your arguments, your distance. It wasn't real. She's been protecting you from something worse." My mind spun. Forced? Protecting me? I didn't understand. And then Emma spoke, her voice trembling. "He's been following me, threatening me." I didn't know how to tell you. Fear, anger, relief, they collided inside me. I reached for her, wanting to shield her, to fix everything. Claire's hand rested on my shoulder, guiding me, almost daring me to act. And just as I felt a glimmer of control, a shadow appeared at the edge of the park. A figure, masked, moving toward us with purpose. Time slowed. Everything we thought we knew, the divorce, the distance, even Claire's cryptic words, was only the surface of something far darker. I realized then that the choices I'd been terrified to make weren't about love or loyalty anymore. They were about survival. And in that heartbeat, the world shifted. The storm wasn't just outside. It was inside, and it was coming for us faster than we could run. By the time the masked figure lunged toward us, my instincts took over. I grabbed Emma, pulling her behind a thick oak tree, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure the intruder could hear it. Claire moved like a shadow, intercepting the figure, her boldness startling me. In the struggle, the mask slipped, and I saw the face behind it. A co-worker of Emma's, someone I had trusted, someone who had been quietly poisoning our lives with rumors, lies, and threats. Relief and rage washed over me at the same time. Emma was safe, for now, and the truth was finally out. Every fight, every misunderstanding, every sleepless night, the hidden hand behind it all had been exposed. Claire's cryptic warnings made sense at last. She hadn't been playing games. She had been protecting us, nudging me toward action when I was frozen by confusion and fear. After the chaos settled, Emma and I sat on the park bench, the mist curling around us like it had hours before, but this time it felt calm. We held hands, trembling, but together. The divorce, the distance, the fear, it all felt like a distant nightmare, one that had forced us to confront not just the threats outside, but the walls we'd built inside ourselves. Claire, standing slightly apart, smiled softly, that spark in her eyes calming now, almost tender. "You two are stronger than you think," she said. "Sometimes beginnings look like endings, and sometimes endings are the push you need to find what really matters." Emma looked at me, tears streaming down her cheeks, and whispered, "I was scared, but I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to survive without protecting us both." I held her closer, realizing how fragile life could be, and how easy it was to forget the things that truly mattered until they were nearly gone. We walked home together, slowly, feeling the weight lift with every step. The apartment that had once felt cold and distant now seemed warm again, filled with quiet laughter, tentative smiles, and the comfort of being understood. Claire trailed behind, her presence a gentle reminder that family and love sometimes comes in unpredictable forms, and often when you least expect it. Even though the danger had passed, the night had changed us. I understand now that life's conflicts aren't just about choosing between people or paths. They're about understanding what we're willing to fight for, and how far we'll go to protect what we love. And yet, as we reached our doorstep, a small envelope slipped under the door caught my eye. I picked it up, hands shaking, and opened it. Inside was a note in familiar handwriting. "This isn't over. Be ready." I looked at Emma, then at Claire, and we all froze. Somehow, the end had only led to another beginning. One that promised challenges we weren't ready for, but somehow, maybe, we're stronger together to face.